Coming to you from deep in the Ozarks and Ridge Runner Studios. This is the Nursing Underground, a podcast that will help clear the white noise in medicine and politics and help you define the forest from the trees. Here is your host, David Big Dave Ezel. Welcome to the Nursing Underground.
Good Saturday morning. Today is March the 18th. I hope everyone is doing well today. I hope you had a great St. Patrick's Day yesterday. And for those of you waking up, drink plenty of water and breathe plenty of air. If you're like me, you can look at alcohol and get hungover just by looking. Today we're going to talk about some heavy duty stuff. I'm going to tell you exactly what the government is doing to our healthcare system. I'm going to show you backwards why nurses are responsible for what's going on. Not all the way, but the lack of action is the same as being responsible for something. The lack of action is just as important as the call to action. And I'll explain the most famous falsehood in the oaths that everybody takes, particularly with Hippocrates. First, do no harm, and that it's not even a part of the Hippocratic Oath. It's kind of interesting because to me it's more fitting for this time in our history about the oath, because we all should be living by that oath. But I'm going to give you exactly how it's translated from Greek into the English. The original writing of this work, of course, found in the Catholic archives in the Vatican, which we have no access to. We know it's there because people have studied it, but other than that, it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting definition retrieval for you. And the book that Hippocrates wrote on it is a very interesting book. Since I've done this research, I've just started reading it. But first, we're going to get a word from my sponsor. She's been with me since the beginning. I told her I had been catching flack on what I've been reporting, and I've been asked to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to. You have to understand that if you're speaking out and speaking the truth and putting things together these days and times, you have people that are absolutely terrified that you might sway somebody to believe the way you believe and actually denounce the minority's thought in what we're doing here. So let's get a word from my sponsor, and then we'll delve into medical hell.
Do you have a friend or family member you're having trouble buying a gift for? You just can't find the right gift for the person who has everything? Then go to Rockin' Magnolia Customs, a place where you can pick out and design the perfect gift for that special someone. That's rockinmagnoliacustoms.com, or find them on Facebook at Rockin' Magnolia Customs.
And that's Amy at Rocking Magnolia Customs. Remember, Rocking never has a G, and the customs are always spelled with a K. RockingMagnoliaCustoms.com. Get that special someone in your life that you can't buy for. Get them a cup with their name on it. Bet that nobody else will have one like it, designed with their favorite color schemes and pattern schemes. Glitter if they want it blingy. She can do blingy. So go see them at Rocking Magnolia Customs and tell them that the Gray State sent you. Hippocrates' rise in fame and time that he was doing his writings was probably about 430 to 450 years before the rise of the Roman Empire. It's more than likely he was not writing in Latin. He was probably writing in Greek. He's been given credit. People have construed over the years that first do no harm is in the Hippocratic Oath that the doctors take, the medicine field takes. It is not. It is not that written that way at all in the Hippocratic Oath. Then the part of the Hippocratic Oath that's given credit to that first do no harm says, I will follow that system of regimen which according to my ability and judgment I consider for the benefit of my patients, and abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous. That's from the Hippocratic Oath. Of the Epidemics is one of Hippocrates' work. And it's to cause harm in medicine, we know is unethical. Sometimes we do have to cause harm during procedures to maximize the outcome. So premium non nocere is not a dictum for medicine at all. It includes identifying foreseeable harm, maintaining high professional standards, remaining cognizant of the knowledge gaps that you have. If you don't understand something, ask first, do no harm. Although it's a bedrock principle of medicine and medicine workers, it's the statement is so significant that many physicians swear by it and use it in their everyday lives. They use it with every patient. They say it every time they walk into a room. I've worked with doctors that say it before they make rounds and walk into a patient's room. It's one of those things where if you abide by that, you tend to make the right decisions. The part that I do not envy of a physician's role is to be able to tell the antecedents, know the present. They have to look and kind of tell what's going to happen in the future, and they must mediate every bit of that to come to an outcome for that individual person or patient. That's when you're regarding a disease, you know, of the epidemics, it says the physician is able to tell the present, the future. He says all that. They have two special objects in view with regards to disease, namely, to do good and above all, to do no harm. There's some overlap there. That part I read earlier with the Hippocratic Oath. What you have to understand is there's no clear priority given to the avoidance of harm over the goal of providing the help. That doesn't fall just, if you are a nurse, if you are a CNA, if you are a doctor, if you are a specialist, if you are a patient care technician in a hospital, you must understand you don't get priority. There's no clear priority to avoid the harm over the goal of providing help. That's what we must remember here. Now, I said all that so you'll have an understanding. I want you to keep that in your mind. First, do no harm. I want you to keep that in your head when you listen to what I'm about to say. I want you to tell me, I don't want you to tell me anything. I want you to realize that we are in an unprecedented time in this country. It has become blatantly clear at this point that the government will do anything and anything at all to take over your life. They've basically lied about a pandemic. Not saying that COVID isn't real. COVID is 100% definitely a true virus. But the crap they came up with is not. Mandates are not laws. They're not requirements. They're using them to push their agenda. We completely understand that. So I'm going to start out when I give these plugs here to a couple of friends of mine, and then I'm going to go right into it. I have two great friends of mine who have podcasts. I would do me a real big favor if you go catch a listen to them. One is called Renegade's Rant. It's by Kentucky Renegade from TikTok. Cool dude, great guy, awesome content. All of his podcasts are very informative. He sticks to the political and geopolitical stances of the country today. He is a former healthcare worker too. He can tell you that he's looked into what I've been talking about, and he's kind of absolutely blown away. It's so hidden from sight because everybody in the country would be mad, and he understands that. But his podcast is freaking awesome. Good guy. Go give a listen to him. He's on Spotify for sure. Apple. It's called Renegade's Rant. He is a Kentucky Renegade. Another guy is Lambo. I met him through the TikTok. I've been on his show. I thought was one of the best shows he's ever done. But his show is called A Little Extra Lambo. He also does the geopolitical stuff. He does a lot of local advertising for his show. He is a great guy, great podcaster, very informative guy. And his show's called A Little Extra Lambo. He's on just about every platform too. You can find him on if you listen to him on. If you listen to Spotify for your podcast or music, you can find him there. I think they're both on Pandora now. We're all on Substack, but I would appreciate that you guys would go out and do that for me. It would be very helpful to them and us. And when you go to their shows, just hit the subscribe button and the check button to automatically download. You don't have to listen to them immediately, but it helps out our numbers tremendously. It helps out our listenership. It provides statistics helpful to us to know. If you find an email them back. Tell them if you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, I'm finding that I'm getting show ideas from my emails, and that helps a lot. If you want to email me, I'm at ridgerunnerstudios@protonmail.com. That's ridgerunnerstudios@protonmail.com. Debbie was on her way to work, stopped by the store, picked up a few items for her shift that night, a couple of Diet Cokes, a Monster, a couple of pieces of candy, snack crackers. While she was waiting in line to check out, she hears behind her, "Oh, well, I hope you're ready for tonight. It's going to be busy." "Why, you're out of there early. Why are you getting to leave early today?" "Well, they told us they've cut staff at work. So they sent me home earlier than normal." "Good luck." All right. So she checks out, goes on into work, puts her purse up, clocks in, grabs her Monster, goes to the counter to get a report. And there's nobody at the nurse's desk. She waits a few minutes. Suddenly, the day shift nurse comes up, walks up to her, gives her a quick report, and says, "Oh, yeah, by the way, you got your 4 rooms, plus you got 2 of the holding rooms, as we're waiting on beds upstairs for them." And she takes her report, 2 of her rooms are empty, 2 have patients in them. About 30 minutes into her shift, ambulance calls. It's going to her. It's not a critical patient. It's just a sick patient. She gets him in the room, gets him checked in. As she's walking out, she hears him cough, turns around, and he's coughed up a big old clot of blood. So she runs back in there, and she starts the IV, and she starts another IV, and she gets him hooked up to the monitor, and she gets him hooked up and fixed up. And she's running the lab work, and she's running the type and cross, and she finds out on his H&H that his H&H is 5 and 22. And she runs down to the blood bank, and she gets 2 units of O negative. It's got an active bleed. They order an X-ray. She makes sure that gets done. She does her job. In the meantime, Mr. Stevens, who came from the local nursing home, has been laying in one of her beds that's waiting for an upstairs. She has checked on him at the beginning of the shift, but then she got the call for this emergency that came into her room. By the time she gets on over there, it's way past the 2-hour check time. She's running into 4 hours. It's almost midnight. And she walks in there and finds a lifeless man. He had a no code on his chart. He lived his life. He was an 89-year-old man, had a stroke, but required turning and changing every 2 hours. The CNA that she talked to or the PCT that she talked to had just gone in and changed him about an hour and a half to 2 hours ago, and he was fine. But he's not now. He's gone. As she's dealing with that, doing the paperwork with that, notifying all the people that need to be notified with that, another call comes in. And it too is a car wreck. And it was a dad that was by himself, and he got T-boned in the intersection. And she's working on that, doing the lab work. He's fine. He just bummed and bruised and banged up a little bit, getting x-rays just to make sure he's okay. He had a little bit of whiplash, and she's working on that. And she turns around, and it's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then she goes and checks on her other patient waiting to go upstairs, and she's unresponsive. Still alive, but unresponsive. It was a 48-year-old lady who came in with some back pain and upper back pain, and she runs to check the vital signs, and she's running 70 over 32. Then she goes and finally pulls up in the lab that came in while she was running her emergency code the first time. The UA came back, and she was positive for a UTI, and it was a big one. It was not a little one. And she's realized now that their patient was septic, but they were waiting on beds to go upstairs. This is a story you're going to hear if you talk to anybody that works in an emergency room. This is the story of today. These were also the stories we heard 35 years ago. You're going to hear those stories over and over and over, because that's what's happening. But when they were talking in the convenience store while she was picking up her drinks and stuff before work, I didn't tell you about the guy standing there that's in the public who paid for his stuff and walked out, walking to his vehicle to get back in to go home. I don't know what they're griping about. They get paid enough. And that's the general public's idea. Why? Because he doesn't know the story that's about to be told. He's not aware of what's actually going on in his local rural hospital. I've been told the whole time, if the government comes out with something or you see something on TV that they think's newsworthy, Hold your horses, because there's something else they're hiding, distracting from. I'm about to give you some examples of that. The Murdaugh trial that everybody watched, where the guy murdered his family, was found guilty of murdering his family, was happening between January 25th of 2023 is the day it started. The verdict came through March 3rd, 2023. So people were watching it on TV, but what they didn't catch, really, some people heard about, but not everybody heard about, was that the Office of the Inspector General announced a massive takedown of fraudulent nursing diploma schemes. They sold 7,600 bogus nursing certificates. Also on the 26th, nursing home owners drained cash while the residents deteriorated. The decrepit conditions described weren't due to a lack of money. Over 7 years, the Villages of Orleans Health and Rehab Center in western New York near Lake Ontario paid $16 million in rent to its landlord, a company that was also owned by the same investors that owned the nursing home. From those coffers, the owners paid themselves and family members nearly $10 million, while the residents injured falls, developed bed sores, missed meds, and stewed in their urine and feces because of shortage of aides, New York authorities allege. January 28th. A wave of rural nursing home closures grows amid a staffing crunch. That's on KUNC, Kaiser Health News. On January 28th also was another article where Marjorie Kruger was stunned to learn that she would have to leave the nursing home where she lived comfortably for 6 years. The Good Samaritan Society facility in Postville, Iowa, would close. Administrator told the 39 residents in September. The facility joined a growing list of nursing homes being shuttered nationwide, specifically in rural areas. She was 98 years old, and all she said was, "The rug was taken out from under me. I thought I was going to stay here the rest of my life." Every person listening right now should be mad as all hell. The government is doing this on purpose. The government damn well knows that there are corporations that have the same company that owns the nursing home, owns the land trust system where the nursing homes have to pay rent to. It's a way to keep all the money contained. Because you can rent the place to do a nursing home, but the owners that own the nursing home also own the landlord. They are their own landlord, and they're paying themselves exorbitant amount of rent. But you have to show you can. That's one of the criteria to get the money from Medicare and Medicaid is you can show where the money's going, if it's going for legitimate cost, and electric and water and rent are legitimate cost. Doesn't matter really who they're paying rent to, right? As long as they're paying their rent and paying it on time. In the meantime, the residents are the ones suffering in the nursing homes. The patients are suffering in the hospitals for a totally different reason. I can give you story after story after story, but I'm going to just give you some facts. And then I'm going to draw from my own experience. Since 2015, 1,000 nursing homes have closed. From 2015 to 2019, there were 776 closures. So keep in mind that's the time frame prior to the pandemic. The last 2.5 years of the pandemic, 465 nursing homes have closed. So that means since 2015, about 45,000 nursing home residents have been displaced. And when I say displaced, they were moved from their local community rural nursing homes and moved to the area of a larger city. By design. And I'll explain the design in a minute. Fast forward to 2022, and at the end of 22, more than 400 more nursing homes are projected to close based on their financials. And what they then say is if Medicare is cut by 5% and Medicaid funding ends, the public health emergency funding I'm talking about, 33 to 38% of all nursing homes are considered at financial risk. 32 to 40% of the residents, that's as many. We're talking about 500,000 residents, approximately 500,000 residents, would then be living in the nursing homes that are considered at financial risk. And that means that 68% across the entire United States in the counties, just take the counties and parishes, 68% would be home to nursing homes that are considered financial risk. Of the 465 nursing homes that was closed during the pandemic time frame, that displaced 18,000 residents. That's just the long-term care sector, folks. That's not counting hospitals. Right now, there's over 600 hospitals in danger of closing. You can type it in. How many hospitals are in danger of closing? Put it in any search engine. You'll find a website called cleveland.com. It's there. They studied it. They looked at it. You have these things going on and nobody's talking about them because they bury them. They happen during something that's going on. Just as recently as March the 12th, the Oscars were held. People were at home paying attention to the Oscars and watching and listening, and they got to see when Jamie Lee Curtis won her Oscar, and she got up there and gave her little woke statement, and everybody talked about that. Hell, it was even on the news the next day. I've not watched Oscars, and Halle Berry was the last time I watched the Oscars. I knew then it was all woke bullshit. I quit. I didn't even care for it then, but it was on. At that time, my wife loved it. That's what we watched because I was a smart husband. You had the Oscars going on, but what you had going on in Ohio in Collier Township, a personal care home, you had all their residents. They were left alone without food, water, and heat. There were no workers in the building for over 13 hours. They did not get their medications. They didn't get their medicines. They didn't get anything. They were left to fend for themselves. In February, 2.5 weeks prior to that, in Ohio, the governor, Mike DeWine, signed an executive order 2023-06D creating the Ohio Governor's Nursing Home Quality and Accountability Task Force. He said during his State of the State address, he's going to form this task force to study the issues surrounding the quality of life and quality of care in Ohio's nursing homes. Governor, let me say this loud and clear for you. You did not have to waste the Ohio taxpayers' money to do this task force study. You didn't have to create a job for somebody to do. All you had to do was go pick out one nurse and one CNA and one housekeeper and one dietary person out of each nursing home. I didn't say nothing about the administration. I didn't say nothing about the owners. I said, go pick a real employee out of every nursing home. Have a fucking forum. Set them in a big, go say, you got the University of Ohio. Use one of their auditoriums. Have them sit in there. Start asking questions. Then you'll get to the real truth of the matter. You wasted taxpayer dollars, Governor. You don't like the fact that there's just a handful of us talking about the nursing home scandals? You don't like the fact that there's just a handful of us in the country making big waves right now because of the medical health care scandals? All that could have been avoided because of lobbyists, all that could have been avoided because of greed, all that could have been avoided because y'all tend to look the other way as politicians as long as they donate into your political fund that you get to keep. Citizens United created an extensive amount of fraud. On the flip side, that's perfectly legal. Yes, it is an expression of free speech. Yes, it is. I completely understand that. I am a free speech advocate. But there's ways around the Citizens United ruling. But you can't do that, can you, Governor? Not just him. I've talked to people from Ohio doing research on this. I knew a couple of nurses I've worked with that were from Ohio. I called them up to see. They don't like this guy and don't figure out how he got elected yet. Well, I've watched the news. I've watched the conspiracy theorists. I've watched every conspiracy theory that's been out there come true, and they're still saying it's not true. The deniers are the one that are the problem. See, no matter how many, the biggest majority of people that deny it, it's the minorities that have been proven true. It's the minority of people, not a minority, the minority of people that are true. You don't want to talk to the nurses. You don't want to talk to the CNAs. You don't want to talk to the dietary workers. You don't want to talk to the housekeepers, because they're the ones that's actually doing the job, taking care of the residents, not the administrations, not the administrators, and not the owners, and not the conglomerate owner companies. They're going to tell you they've got all of this. In the meantime, they're slashing pay. In the meantime, they're cutting funds to the residents laying in the beds that you say you care so much about and you run your political campaign every 4 years on. We're going to take care of the elderly and the children. I haven't even got started on the children yet. That's a whole episode in itself. These group homes, ladies and gentlemen, they're closing at exponential rates. Your children that have mental disabilities, learning disorders, learning functionability in the public, and they thrive in these group homes are losing their homes too. It's not just the nursing homes. Same goes for the hospitals. They're in a crunch too right now. You hear a little bit more about that because it's acute care and it affects the people that are A&O times 4. That means they are alert oriented to time, place, situation. Of course they know who they are. They're aware that if they break a leg, they're going to have to go to an emergency room, specifically if it's after 5 o'clock. They understand that. And they don't have time in the emergency rooms now to take care of the elders that fall in nursing home and bump their head and they're on blood thinners. They go in there and they do an x-ray on their C-spine and they send them right back to the nursing home. Because nurses in general, nursing homes that used to be long-term care are now becoming subacute care. We're doing the work that the hospitals used to do because the Medicare and the Medicare quit paying for stuff. You get paid on readmissions from an emergency room, from a nursing home. The nursing homes have to pay it out of their pocket. They try to keep them in the nursing home because they thought that program was going to keep them out of the hospitals and keep them in the nursing care facilities. And they created that on purpose to create a dependence on the government for the grants and the funds and the money. And if you get the grants and the fund and the money, there's strings attached, and they use that Okay, well, we can do this. We'll keep them here till they're almost dead and then send them in. Then maybe they'll keep them. It never fails. You got nurses that know each other. Look, folks, I let y'all know what's going on. You create friendships over the phone when you call, and if you work in a facility. I worked in a facility out west, um, and I've had the same rotation as the ER charge nurse. Her name was Sarah. Um, when I was out west, if I had to send somebody to the emergency room, I just dialed Sarah on her personal cell phone. I said, I'm fixing to call in and report. Who's your triage nurse tonight? Oh, well, I'm the house supervisor and I'm the triage nurse tonight too. Okay. Well, let me call you. I'll call you on the secure line in a minute. All right. And then I would tell them, and she'd say, oh, well, we've had them before, haven't we? I said, yeah, I've already um, sent you the secure email of all of his records over there and your medical record number so you can look him right up. So we did that on our own for continuity of care. But we did that on our own because we had to. We did that on our own because the federal government rules made it to where we really have to do it that way. We call reports. We joke with each other now. We don't even work in the same building. We joke and laugh with each other. I'm a big flirter, and I flirt with them on the phone and try to take the blow out of, I'm sorry, I'm about to send you something that's unnecessary. But they won't let us do this because regulations say we can't do this. But they want us to, but then they say we can't. Goes back to that old adage when I was growing up, wanting one hand, chaw in another, as the Navajo say, which really means just shit in the other and see which one fills up the fastest. You know which one it is. The government's done this on purpose. Everybody says I'm really pushing it out there. That I'm not real sure that they're doing it on purpose. I'm just saying it, but I'm telling you, if you look at the big picture and you look at the theory of the 15-minute cities, I'm going to call it a theory, even though they're doing it all over the world, and our northern neighbors are putting up with it now in Quebec. They've got these 15-minute cities. They're driving all of the rural area facilities and moving the residents into the bigger area facilities where they're planned to do the 15-minute cities. Remember, everything you need will be within 15 minutes of your address. That's the only way to do it. Because we're not able to move these people out of these nursing homes, and then they're short in these bigger nursing homes on staff, but they pick up a few from every closure till eventually you've got not just the residents moved, but you've moved the staff into that area too. That's one theory. That's just one way to look at it. Or you could look at it like, well, we got this other 15-minute city down the road from them. They can go there because that's where the pediatricians are, but that's the only reason they need to go. And they know where you are, and then you drive over there for 15. You're probably 30 minutes away from that 15-minute city, but you go over there. Oh, they know when you check in. They know when you check out. They know when you should be back to your other 15-minute city. If you don't, they're coming to get you. Everybody asks how healthcare plays a function in that 15-minute city theory. There you go. You start shutting down facilities, you don't need as many nurses. You don't need as many CNAs. They become dependent upon the government at that point. There's your theory all wrapped up in a nice little bow. Same thing with hospitals. You shut them down, move them in. There they are. Plus, their staff came with them because they have to have a job to work and be able to feed their family and pay their bills. In the meantime, the owners are paying themselves rent in an exorbitant amount of money. That's one story I told earlier. And we sit there and allow it to happen. And the nurses gripe about it amongst themselves. Or gripe about it in the convenience stores, or gripe about it in the grocery store. But what does the public hear? The public hears, did you hear where those nurses were making $10,000 a week at the height of the pandemic, and now they're bitching because they're having to do a lot of work? We're having to do a lot of work because it's undue work. It's ridiculous to have to do that type of work and that type of pressure. You're never going to convince anyone. You're not going to convince a nurse that it's okay. But yet we sit there and do nothing. We sit there and just think it's acceptable. Why? Because we've been convinced that it's acceptable. We've been convinced by the administration of these facilities that it's acceptable. We've been convinced that by administrations and by owners and by conglomerates and by the government and by the politicians and by everybody else, that nurses and nursing aides and dietary workers and all of that are a dime a dozen. I'm not a dime a dozen, people. I know my worth. I know my skill set. I know my knowledge base. I know what I'm worth. You ain't going to run me off. I will call a spade in a quick minute. They cut staffing. One building I was in, they tried that cutting staffing. I marched right up to the administrator's office and I said, why are you doing this? Well, I'm not doing it. I said, well, then who told you to do it? Well, it was so-and-so. I said, well, get them on the phone. I'm going to ask them why they're doing it. But you can't do that. Yes, I can. I said, I'm not only that, I'm fixing to go out there and start talking about my pay. And there won't be a damn thing you can do about it. You can't do that. We'll fire you for that. Go ahead. You're going to fire me for what I say to them anyway. See, they've created a construct in the healthcare field where you can't talk about your pay. There's nothing illegal about that. But because the government has upheld that if it's in the policy of the building, you have to abide by it. Well, that works fine and good until the government sends a survey team in, and they're supposed to be, if it's in the policy, but it's in the policy, but it's wrong. It directly conjugates the federal rule that we have on this survey tag in this nursing home, and we're going to fine you for it because we paid you $14 million last year in Medicare funding, and we got to have some of that back because we got a shortfall this year, and we got to make that back. So we're going to fine you $500 a day. Then we're not going to accept your first plan of correction that you send in from the facility, so we can keep getting $500 a day for 6 weeks, because we're going to take our sweet ass time responding back to the facilities and making sure that that plan of correction is being followed before we stop the fine. So they paid you $14 million, and in one fell swoop, they got almost $100,000 of it back, just to turn around and give it to another company who pays themselves $10 million a year in rent and justifies the action by using if it's got to pay rent for the residents to live here. See, I told everybody I was putting it on the line, and I am. I'm telling it now. What are you doing? We were charged before the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm. Above all else, you do no harm. Well, by not speaking out, we're doing harm, nurses. By just griping at home and griping to your spouse and griping to your fellow co-workers, that's fine, that's venting. You're still causing harm because you're allowing it to still take place. And if we're charged with doing no harm, then why are we allowing harm to happen? We allow it to happen by not saying anything. You may be the difference in saving a life by speaking up about the staffing issue. Because I know where I work, my CNAs are my right hand. They're my eyes and ears when I'm busy doing all the damn stupid triple and quadruple charting just to keep the building happy. These facilities holler about, we want you to treat the resident, but we want all this charting done too. Well, you have to make a decision. Am I going to treat the patient or am I going to treat the computer? They would much rather you treat the computer because that's where your money comes from. They don't want you treating the patient. They're going to say otherwise, but it's bullshit. Actions speak louder than words. It's plain. Ask a nurse out of 12 hours, how much time do they spend charting versus sitting in patient care? They get mad at me where I work because I spend time with my residents. I know my residents. I know their children. And they get mad at me because I didn't get one little thing of charting done. Although it's only required to do once every 24 hours, they've made a rule up because if they do it 2 times, they might cover something that gets extra money. And yet you say it's not all about the money. It's supposed to be about the resident care. Prove it. Show me where I am wrong. I've been doing this crap almost 30 years. I have yet to have a DON. I have yet to have a medical records director that actually has a HIM degree. Show me where I am wrong. I'm still waiting. I'm not getting any younger. I'm waiting, people. I'm waiting, corporate conglomerate people. I'm waiting for you to show me where I am wrong. To the state surveyors, I'm waiting for you to show me where I'm wrong according to your own regulations. Or is it because you used to work in medicine and we charted the AccuChecks here and we charted them here and we charted them here? They only have to be charted once. I don't have to build you a yellow brick road to find a tag. That's not my job either. But when you quadruple and quintuple and septuple chart, and for all you people that don't know what those are, that's 4, 5, and 6 times. You're going to eventually misdo a number that's going to cause you to get a tag. Then they make you computerize the charting. Well, everybody acts like it's no big deal. Well, guess what? They only send what's required by the government in there, no matter how many times you chart it. If it's wrong information, the person putting the information in is the one that did it wrong. Then you got to send it's called a addendum X to what so in long-term care, we send these things called minimal data sets in, and they're transmitted now electronically. And if you've got the wrong information, say you opened the wrong chart and filled out the MDS for the wrong patient and submitted it, and it gets kicked back because the information didn't match somewhere, then you've got to do an addendum X. Well, if you do more than 1 or 2 of them, they're coming to do an investigation. They come into survey team so they can find a fine to tag you with, so they can take money out of the mouths of the people they're supposed to be taking care of, the people that paid into the system, the people that paid into Social Security, the people that paid in to be taken care of in their old age. They got to take the money out of their damn mouths. Because that's how it's designed and set up. Because they've got us so trained. Oh, well, if you say anything, it's a HIPAA violation. You know what? People are starting to get tired of this HIPAA violation. Everybody hides behind a HIPAA violation in the healthcare field. We're smart enough now, we know how to use a thesaurus. The social app, the government trying to maintain and control free speech on these apps have taught us how to use a thesaurus, how to refer to things without using the direct name. I saw an article the other day where it talked about things that are out of style anymore. And the very first thing was cursive writing. It might look pretty, but it doesn't get the message across. That's because you can't read, you idiot. That's because they've quit teaching reading comprehension and started teaching you just letters and words. They've started teaching you what is woke language. That's what happens to medicine. That's what's happened now. We've put woke in medicine and we've destroyed it. The government did it on purpose. Now you got people on TikTok hollering about this Jeffrey Marsh, who is a blooming idiot. And you're giving credence by arguing about his stuff, knowing the app's going to protect him, but you want to keep on with it. Now to the point that they're threatening people that are talking out against what he's doing. They're threatening him, or they're threatening those people. That's why people are pulling away from the app, but that's by design by the government too, see. So you got to realize we know that it's owned by the CCP, and we know that our government's in cahoots with them because the Bidens are in cahoots with them because that's what they talk about. They don't want you to know, they're going to do everything they can to keep all of that out of the news media. Everybody draw your own conclusion, do your own research. That's what I do. The same thing with that is the same thing with this healthcare issue. The government's doing it on purpose because they're trying to contain, cut until they have you contained in one area. It's no secret. They've been doing it for years. They've cut and contained facilities. Hospitals have their own specialties. If you want a heart surgery, you go to this hospital. If you need an ortho surgery, you go to this hospital. If you need neurosurgery, you go to this hospital. And then if they can't do it, they send you to the teaching hospitals. See, it's all conveniently contained now. Whereas when I was growing up in a small country rural hospital where we had to build an incubator if we had a birth and the child couldn't maintain his temperature in the one we had. We had to build cardboard boxes with heating pads in them. It worked. They survived. As a matter of fact, the one that I delivered 8 years ago, I went to his high school graduation. I went to his college graduation. Now he's in med school. I didn't help deliver that child in the emergency room where nobody was in a rural 4-bed ER for that child I didn't plan it. It happened. It was meant to happen. But I did go get the cardboard box, and get enough pillows and blankets warmed in the microwave and stuck in there so the child could get his temperature maintained till we could get him to the big hospital. Back in a time where that's what we did. In a time where we actually cared about the patient and the responsibility of the care instead of worrying about the money that involved with it. We all understand cutting costs. We all have to budget our households. We get that. But when it comes to your mother and your father, when it comes to your aunt and your uncle, when it comes to your brother and sister, when it comes to your child, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to really be concerned about that? Or do you throw a fit when we sit there and tell you we have to do this because this is what we're told to do? No, you feel like you're being singled out and put against when it's not just you, it's everybody around you. But that's not what you talk about. You talk about the attitude the nurse had when they told you that. Because you got to blame somebody, you might as well blame the first person you come in contact with instead of looking past the nurse and looking up the ladder to where it really goes. Because you can't really stop at the CEO of the facility, can you? You got to go now to your politicians, where the real problem is. But they fixed it to where you only see to the CEO, you only see to the nurse. And if that wasn't enough, they go in here and they pull this Operation Nightingale. It's been going on for years, and nobody's asking how the hell did that get past the Board of Nursing when they're supposed to do their checks before this happens? Or was a $350 registration fee too much for the state to turn down 7,600 times? Well, if we do this, we'll cause distrust in the nurses even more to what's supposed to be the most trusted profession. And then the other night, the president gets up and says the most underrated workers in America are nurses. You caused the damn underrating of the nurses in America, you dumbass. Politicians, keep our names out of your mouth. Until you come to the source to get the answers you want, Governor DeWine, your little task force you've created in your state, which is a good idea. But you didn't ask the people that provide the care, did you? You just asked the families what they're going through, and they're only giving you individual accountability. If you ask a nurse, if you ask a CNA, if you ask a healthcare worker, when they really get it boiled down to, they're going to tell you it's because you don't pay us enough money. It's because you hide the fact that you're paying the companies to pay themselves rent. Because if it's a private company, guess what? There's no transparency required. But if it's a not-for-profit, there is transparency required. And the nonprofits are the ones closing first. And they're not even supposed to be designed to make money. I appreciate your effort, Governor DeWine. I really do. I'm glad I don't live in Ohio, because I'm afraid I'd have to go to the Capitol and tell you to your face, don't be a dumbass. Because apparently you've got that covered hook, line, and sinker. And yet those people still keep voting for you. Ladies and gentlemen, nurses, I've always heard that to enact change, to invoke an idea, you have to yell about it. We've started. We're doing it now. I'm not going to be the only one. I'm just the only one doing it underground. I started out underground. I started out bouncing back and forth, trying to hold my tongue, trying to keep it quiet. But my episode 2 weeks ago, and then I've spent a week fighting a governor who's asked me not to keep pulling it up because I'm causing him a little more work, the effort that he's having to pull. I'm causing him to have to do a little more thinking. You ran your campaign, and I'm not talking about DeWine. This was a different governor. I'm just using DeWine because I found his task force on YouTube. And I saw her giving the credence spiel at the end of the interview. And we're going to take this back, and we're going to create a comprehensive report. There's no comprehensive report. It's very fucking simple. Make sure the money that you're giving to the nursing homes going to the employees and going to the workers of the facility. Make sure that the owners of these corporations are getting their annual pay and nothing more. Then you won't have this shit like you had in New York where they charged themselves $14 million. Was it $14 million? No, $16 million in rent. $16 million in rent. You get that, people? $16 million in rent. Do you think those people would have fell and broken bones? Do you think they would have developed bed sores if you'd invested the money into the workers that it goes to begin with? Hell to the no. Those residents would have been probably taken better care of. Building maintenance, I can see $5 million. Goddamn, I can see it. Some of these buildings are older. They require maintenance. That's how it works. Until we start standing up and screaming, until we start actually doing it, until we decide to quit worrying about what employee is doing more than I am, because I don't want to do as much as I'm doing because I'm doing more than they are. and they're not doing as much as me, and it's not fair. That's not even a fair thing to say. What you need to be doing is, how are you getting by not doing so much? What's your little secret? And then we go back to, oh my God, we're teaching the art of nursing to somebody else now, aren't we? We're returning it back to what it used to be. Totally by accident, though. Not by design like it used to be. See, nursing is a science. Nursing is also an art. There's no artist left to teach the art. They've all quit. They've all quit because the federal government, Joseph Robinette Biden, came up with a mandate. See, we get medical choice too. And it worked into their hands, and we let it. Now they've got this bright idea that they're all going to require these N95 fittings to take place again. For what? For what? Since COVID, I hadn't seen that much flu till this year. Till when COVID was going on, I didn't see any TB patients till this year. You mean to tell me COVID was so all-powerful? Or it was all hidden, the real going on? See, I can't wear N95. My doctor will give me a note. Because I've wore the N95 so much and caused so much going on in my respiratory tract, not to mention that I had thyroid cancer, but they don't care about that part of it. They want you to have this N95 fitting. Oh, it's mandatory. So is a flu shot. It's mandatory, specifically in the state of Arkansas. And I thought we had a Republican governor named Sarah Huckabee Sanders that we're all concerned about choice. But yet Arkansas mandates a flu shot if you work in a nursing home. Well, that sure ain't got no choice, Sarah. Hey, Sarah, you going to fix that? Hey, all you Republican senators in the state of Arkansas, y'all going to fix that? Or are you still just going to let it run by? Act like, oh, well, we care about the old people. But that's fine. Don't care about the workers, though, do you? Your actions speak louder than the words you speak. Stop it all. You have the power. Stop it all. You have the power. Or do you get federal funds by doing it? Don't think we hadn't listened. Don't think we don't know. And don't you damn well think we're going to forget. Because I'm not going to forget. From here on out, consider me your thorn. I don't live in the state of Ohio, Governor DeWine, but I can talk about you on here because it goes to the state of Ohio. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I think you're a great person. I think you're fantastic press secretary. I think you did a remarkable job. I think you're doing good strides in education in the state of Arkansas. I don't, however, think you give a damn about the medical side. Because if you did, the very first thing you'd have done is struck the mandatory flu vaccines. Because it's mandatory, and you didn't think it ought to be mandatory when COVID was going around, huh? Oh, actions speak louder than words, huh? That's what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, nurses, CNAs, anybody that works in the healthcare field, doctors, nurses, practitioners, until you stand up and fight this fight, until you stand up and say no more, I'm tired of it, until you can sit there and say, I love my community and I don't want to see my nursing home go away. I don't want to see my community hospital go away because that's all we've got left. You can't say you're not doing harm. Because remember, Hippocrates said before the Hippocratic Oath, above all else, commit no harm.
You have been listening to The Nursing Underground, a podcast dedicated to informing you of the white noise in politics and healthcare, and helping you redefine the trees in the forest. Join Big Dave again next week in The Nursing Underground from Ridge Runner Studios.